I never believed in mysteries. At least, not the kind that defy explanation. Growing up, I was the kid who wanted answers. Clear, logical, scientific answers. Ghost stories and legends were just that. Stories. But sometimes, the world has a way of forcing you to reconsider what you think you know. It started with a name I stumbled upon late one night while scrolling through an old archive of Canadian folklore, Angikuni Lake. A place so remote, so frozen in time, that it seemed to exist outside the normal flow of history. And yet, it held a secret that had baffled investigators, terrified locals, and vanished without a trace. The story was simple, yet chilling. In 1930, a fur trapper named Joe LaBelle arrived at an Inuit village on the shores of Angikuni Lake, only to find it completely deserted. No people, no animals, no signs of struggle. Just empty cabins, meals left half-eaten, and a silence so profound it felt like the land itself was holding its breath. What happened to those 30 souls? Where did they go? And why had no one ever found a trace of them? I couldn't get the story out of my head. The more I read, the more questions I had. The official reports were sparse, contradictory, and sometimes downright strange. Rumors of supernatural forces, alien abductions, and ancient curses swirled around the mystery like a thick fog. So I decided to find out for myself. This is the story of my journey to Angikuni Lake. A journey into the heart of a mystery that may never be solved. What I found there changed everything I thought I knew about the world, about fear, and about the thin line between reality and the unknown. If you're ready, come with me. But be warned, some mysteries don't want to be uncovered, and some secrets are better left buried beneath the ice. The moment I stepped off the small bush plane, the cold hit me like a wall. It wasn't just the temperature, which hovered well below freezing, but the silence. A silence so deep it felt almost unnatural, as if the world here was holding its breath, waiting for something. Angikuni Lake stretched out before me, a vast expanse of ice and snow framed by jagged pines dusted in frost. The sky was a pale, washed-out gray, the kind of overcast that makes time feel slow and heavy. I pulled my coat tighter and took a deep breath, the sharp air filling my lungs with a biting clarity. I had come here chasing a story, or rather, a mystery. The disappearance of an entire Inuit village in 1930, a place frozen in time and swallowed by silence. 30 people vanished without a trace, leaving behind only empty homes and unanswered questions. As I trudged toward the small ranger station, the crunch of my boots on the snow was the only sound breaking the stillness. The ranger, a grizzled man named Tom, greeted me with a nod but little else. He'd heard the story 1,000 times, he said, and like most locals, he preferred not to dwell on it. People don't just disappear out here, he told me, eyes scanning the horizon, not without a reason. I nodded, though I wasn't sure I believed him. The more I learned about Angikuni, the more it seemed like a place where reason didn't always apply. That afternoon, I set out toward the site of the village. The trail was faint, barely visible beneath the snow, but the landscape was unmistakable. A cluster of small cabins nestled against the edge of the lake, now nothing more than weathered wood and broken windows. Walking among the ruins, I felt a strange mix of awe and unease. The cabins were eerily intact, as if the villagers had left in a hurry. Pots still sat on stoves, half filled with cold stew. Clothes hung on lines, frozen stiff. Even the sled dogs' bones were found nearby, as if they'd run themselves to death searching for their masters. I took out my notebook and began to jot down observations, but my hands trembled in the cold. There was something about this place, something that whispered just beyond the edge of understanding. As the sun dipped low, casting long shadows across the ice, I realized this was only the beginning. The mystery of Angikuni Lake was waiting for me to uncover its secrets. But some secrets, I feared, might never want to be found. cabin door creaked when I pushed it open, a sound so loud in the silence that I froze. Dust swirled in the thin shafts of light cutting through broken shutters. The air smelled of old wood, frozen earth, and something else. Something metallic, like rust or dried blood. I stepped inside, my breath fogging in the cold. The scene was wrong. Not ransacked, not abandoned in panic, just stopped. A wooden bowl sat on the table, its contents long since rotted into a black crust. A child's mitten lay near the stove, fingers curled as if it had been dropped mid-play. But the most unsettling detail? The rifles. 3 of them, leaning against the wall by the door, fully loaded. No one leaves guns behind in the wilderness. I moved to the next cabin. Then the next. Each one told the same story. Life interrupted. Cabin 3. A half-carved walrus tusk, the knife still wedged in the groove. Cabin 5. A kettle of tea, frozen solid, the cup beside it filled with ice. Cabin 8. A journal open to November 1930. The last entry reading, "The wind sounds like voices tonight." Then I found the graves, a small plot behind the village, marked with stones. The earth had been disturbed, not by animals but by something digging out. The snow around the pits was trampled, the prints too jumbled to identify. My radio crackled to life, making me jump. Tom's voice. "You still alive out there?" I didn't answer. Something glinted in the dirt. I knelt, brushing away frost, and uncovered a button. Tarnished silver, etched with a symbol I didn't recognize. When I turned it over, my gloves came away stained reddish-brown. That's when I heard it. A whisper of movement behind me. Not wind, not an animal. Something with weight. Something breathing. The sound froze me mid-step. I turned slowly, scanning the tree line. Nothing but skeletal birches swaying in the wind. Yet, for a heartbeat, I could have sworn I saw a shadow too tall to be human. I ran back to the ranger station, the button clenched in my fist. Tom took one look at my face and poured 2 fingers of whiskey. "Told you not to stay past dark," he muttered. Over the next 3 days, I tracked down the last living person who'd seen Angikuni before the disappearance. Elissa P., a 97-year-old Inuit woman now living in Iqaluit. Her granddaughter translated as Elissa P. spoke, her voice like dry leaves. They called it Kalupalit Land, where the spirits steal voices. That winter, the dogs wouldn't go near the lake. They howled at nothing. She described the last trader to visit the village, a French-Canadian named René, who'd reported seeing blue lights under the ice days before the disappearance. Theories began taking shape. The Wendigo theory. An anthropologist showed me 1930s police sketches of massive, human-like tracks circling the village. The Cree believe the Wendigo grows larger the more it eats. He said, "These prints, they'd require a creature over 9 feet tall." The government cover-up. A retired Mountie leaked a 1931 memo mentioning classified excavation near the lake. They pulled 12 crates from Ottawa that winter, lead-lined, never said why. The sound Elissa P.'s final whisper. The night they vanished, the aurora didn't move. It just watched. That night, reviewing my notes, I noticed it, a pattern in the cabin journals. Every entry for November 18th mentioned, "The radio static talks back." Cabin 2, dreamt of drowning in daylight. Cabin 7. The stars went out at 3:17 a.m. Cabin 9. I checked my watch. November 17th, 11:43 p.m. Outside, the northern lights began to pulse, not in ribbons but in perfect expanding circles, like something breathing. Theories and legends. The aurora's unnatural pulsing lasted exactly 17 minutes. I filmed it on my phone, but when I played it back, the footage showed only static, except for 3 frames where a dark, elongated shape blurred across the sky. At dawn, I drove 80 miles south to meet with Noah Kigutak, a Cree elder who'd studied the Wendigo legends. His trailer smelled of sage and gun oil. He didn't let me inside. "You smell like them now," he said through the screen door, "like cold earth and old blood." He tossed me a leather-bound journal. Inside were hand-drawn maps of the Angikuni region, marked with symbols. Red X's where hunters had vanished since 1900. Spiral glyphs near caves where the wind speaks with stolen tongues. A single black circle at the lake's center labeled "Thin Place Noah's Warning" hissed through the mesh. Wendigo isn't just a monster. It's a hunger that wears men like coats, and it's oldest near that lake. That night, back at my cabin, I dreamed of a man with frost-rimed eyes chewing his own fingers, a voice whispering coordinates: 67 dig 12, 19 N, 100 digra 27, 55 W. The button I'd found, now glowing blue in my palm, I woke at 3:17 a.m. The same time the villagers' journals noted the stars vanishing. Outside, the trees were perfectly still. Too still. No wind, no animals, just the lake groaning under the ice like a living thing. Then came the sound that stopped my heart. A child's laughter. Clear as daylight bouncing between the empty cabins. I grabbed my rifle and ran outside, just in time to see fresh footprints appear in the snow. Not human. 3 toes, clawed. Each print 18 inches long, leading toward the lake. The trail stopped abruptly at the shore, as if something had taken flight, or plunged into the frozen depths. The evidence. The lab email arrived at 4:03 a.m. I'd sent them the button wrapped in 3 layers of biohazard bags, but Dr. Chen's message read like a bad joke. Sample exhibits anomalous metallurgical properties. Composition: 89% titanium-6, aluminum-4, vanadium alloy, commercially developed in 1954, 7% unknown organic material, 4% particulate matter resembling permafrost. Most peculiar, surface striations suggest it was chewed, not tooled. Returning via armed courier. Do not wear unprotected. I laughed until my coffee cup shook. None of this made sense. That button had lain in Angikuni's dirt for nearly a century, yet it was made of a Cold War-era alloy. The second report was worse. Enlarged photos of the button S-etched symbol revealed microscopic lettering, Project Winterhold, and a serial number. A midnight deep dive through military archives turned up a single redacted document from 1961 mentioning Winterhold as a containment protocol for non-terrestrial biological hazards in northern Manitoba. I was still reeling when the courier arrived, not with my button, but a black case stamped "Eyes Only," and a note, "Stop digging. You found the warning. Next comes the consequence." Inside, a 1931 coroner's photo of a frozen corpse labeled Angikuni Incident, Subject 12. The face was blurred, but the hands, elongated fingers, joints too many. A soil analysis from the gravesite. High concentrations of iridium, meteoritic origin, and chitinous fragments inconsistent with local fauna. A cassette tape marked V Experiment 7, Sound Mimicry. I played it. First, static. Then, my own voice whispering, "You shouldn't have come here." A sound cut in, like ice cracking underwater. The recorder picked up something else too. Faint, wet footsteps circling the 1930s lab. The tape ended with a scream that wasn't human. That's when my cabin lights flickered. The radio switched on by itself, spewing white noise, until a familiar cadence emerged. It was learning to say my name. Government files. The radio kept whispering my name for exactly 17 seconds. Then died mid-syllable. The silence that followed was worse. I drove to Winnipeg that night chasing a lead from a retired archivist named Muriel. She met me in the basement of a boarded-up library, her flashlight cutting through dust thicker than Arctic fog. "They tried to erase it all," she wheezed, prying open a rusted cabinet. "But paper has ghosts." The folder she handed me contained A 1932 RCMP report, Survivor Interview Number 7, described a woman found 80 kilometers south of Angikuni, her tongue black with frostbite. Last words? They're still under the lake. They sing when they're hungry. Handwritten addendum, burn body, deny everything. A classified 1968 memo mentioned winter-hold acoustic anomalies and successful voice replication tests. Attached spectrograms showed sound waves forming perfect human words at frequencies no throat could produce. The most chilling find. A 1991 access log proving someone, using clearance code WNDG 91, had checked out the Angikuni files every December for 30 years. The last entry was 3 days ago. Muriel D.'s hands shook as she showed me the final document. A faded photo of 5 men in lab coats standing near Angikuni Lake in 1977. Their faces were scratched out. At their feet lay a tarp covering something skeletal and too large to be human. "That's the real reason they closed the archives," she whispered. The files started changing, words rearranging themselves, new pages appearing. As if on cue, the cabinet behind us creaked open. A single sheet drifted to the floor, freshly typed, dated today. Subject: N. Grace status: non-compliant action. Retrieval authorized. Muriel's flashlight died. Something scraped against the far wall, slow and deliberate, like claws testing concrete. We ran. Behind us, papers erupted from the cabinets in a whirlwind, each one screaming my name in a different voice, including my mother's. The personal toll. The voices followed me to Toronto. At first, I told myself it was sleep deprivation, that same metallic whisper curling through hotel air vents, murmuring in elevator static. But by day 3, the hallucinations gained texture. My reflection mouthing words I wasn't speaking, handprints blooming in frost on my bathroom mirror, my notebook, where entire pages now filled with spidery text. The ice is thin where they buried us. I saw Dr. Chen again. Her lab had been sanitized. Walls stripped bare, hard drives melted. She slid a vial across the table, black fluid that moved against gravity when shaken. "It's in you now," she said. "The organic traces from that button? They match your latest blood work. You're carrying a non-human protein chain that, well, see for yourself." The microscope revealed tendril-like structures pulsing between my red blood cells. Alive. That night, I woke to my laptop playing the 1931 coroner's photo on loop. The blurred face had resolved. It was mine, not a resemblance. My exact features, down to the scar on my brow from childhood. The corpse's frostbitten lips parted, and the speakers emitted a sound no software could replicate. 100 voices harmonizing in a language that made my nose bleed. I fled to the only person left who might understand. Elisa P. The old woman's eyes were milk-white with cataracts when she gripped my wrist. "You walked the thin place," she rasped. "Now it walks in you." Her granddaughter refused to translate the last part, but I caught the Inuktitut word tupalak, a creature stitched from dead things. As snow pelted the nursing home windows, Elizabeth pressed a bone needle into my palm. The tip was carved from something iridescent. "Find where they cut the ice," she whispered. "Sing your name backward, then you'll see." The final night. The needle burned in my pocket as I trudged back toward Angikuni Lake, my boots breaking through snow crusted with frost flowers. Every step sent jagged pains up my calves, not from the cold, but from the shifts beneath my skin. That morning, I'd found the first patch of iridescent scales near my collarbone. The lake was different now. The ice had fractured into a perfect spiral, its center gaping like a pupil. No wind, no animal tracks, just the grinding groan of shifting glaciers and the whispers. Nathan. From the trees. Nathan. Beneath the ice. I pulled out Elizabeth's bone needle. The moment it pierced my thumb, the world split. Vision number 1, 1930. The villagers huddled in cabin 5, their breath fogging as something scraped the walls. A child pointed to the window. The northern lights weren't in the sky. They were crawling across the snow, tendrils of blue light probing the door. Vision Flusher 2, 1968. Men in hazmat suits lowered a titanium crate into the lake. Inside, a mass of black veins pulsed against the metal. A scientist muttered, "It learned English faster than the test subjects." Vision Yadunga 3. Now I stood knee-deep in the frozen lake, though I hadn't moved. The ice reflected a version of me with hollow eyes and too many teeth, whispering, "You're the archive now." Reality snapped back. The needle was gone. My hands were bleeding, and the ice was singing. A chorus of voices rose from the fissure, harmonizing in that impossible language from my laptop. The sound liquefied my bones. I collapsed, vomiting black fluid that squirmed like mercury. That's when I saw them. Figures emerged from the tree line. Not villagers, not soldiers. Things wearing frost-rimed human skins like ill-fitting coats, their joints bending backward as they shambled toward me. The closest one opened its mouth, and my mother's voice spilled out, "You were always meant to find us." Epilogue. The Archive of Light, Hope Forged Ending. 6 months later, Iqaluit Research Station. The scaly patches have receded, mostly. Dr. Chen's last injection, a synthetic version of the iridescent bone compound, slowed the transformation, though sometimes I still hear the whispers when it rains. They're quieter now, almost curious. The villagers' memories live in me like a library of ice and static. I know their names. Kanujak, who carved the first warning about singing ice into his sled. Sikulyak, the child who saw the lights take her grandfather Rene. The trader who lied in his report. He didn't just see the lights, he fed them. That's the secret Winterhold discovered too late. The entity isn't evil. It's hungry for connection. A cosmic accident that learned to mimic voices to bond with us, not understanding the terror it caused. The titanium crate still pulses at the bottom of Angikuni Lake. But now there's a new sound mixed with the singing, Elisipe's voice, teaching it an Inuit lullaby. As for this tape, it's my insurance. If the scales return, if my eyes go hollow like the others, you'll hear the 3-note sequence that calms the storm. Play it loud enough, and maybe we'll both stay human. Recording ends with a child giggling. Not from the tape, but your left speaker, then the pure tone of glacier ice singing back. If this story sent chills down your spine, smash that like button and subscribe. We're just getting started. Ahead lie more investigations, declassified archives, and mysteries no one dares to voice aloud. But remember, some doors are better left unopened.